Stephany, it is so good to have you back on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
It is such a pleasure. How are you doing today? How's things been going?
Things are good. Kiddos and I did school this morning. Thursdays are always a day they look forward to because we don't do school on Fridays. So it's the last day of school for the week and they get to go to grandma's. So
Oh,
double
I
win.
love that. That is awesome. Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, like Steph, you have been on the podcast before.
Yeah.
You came and talked maybe twice actually. You've talked
hmm
about homeschooling and building your jewelry business while homeschooling your four little ones, one's still a baby. And I actually just love that routine. Like, I would love to, if I was a kid again, I'd love to have that routine of like 4 days of homeschool and then you have Fridays off. And it's like, to do things that you love. It
Yeah.
just sounds so peaceful. I know it's probably not peaceful for you, but like as a kid, it just sounds like such a beautiful routine.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to have you on today because you are going to be taking over the reins and you're going to be putting me in the hot seat. So, yeah, I'm excited to be diving in.
Yeah, this is a treat, because when we're on calls and things like that, we always get to ask you questions, but it's about our own business
Mm.
and how we need to navigate the things we're going through. And so this will be an opportunity to get to know you a little bit more. So I'm excited.
Amazing. I'm excited too. Do you want to kick us off with our first question, Steph?
Yeah. Okay. So I do know that you have lived in several countries. And as a small town girl, I live in a little tiny town in Idaho in the United States. And I have been out of our country once or twice, just twice, but to the Bahamas, to the same place.
And once to
And
Canada. You came to the
that's
retreat.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
I forget that yep, we drove up there. We went to Canada. So I've only left the country twice, and you have lived in, I don't even know how many. Was it like four, six? I don't know.
It's like 5/6
Five
countries.
slash six countries. So that is just fascinating to me because it must have just diversified you so much to see so many different cultures and ways of life. And I'm curious to know a little bit about that and specifically how it has shaped you as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, this is such a good question, Steph. And you know what? It's interesting because it's not something like I ever really think about. Um, I know, like, for maybe somebody who's like, you're from a small town, you probably think, oh my gosh, that's like a huge thing. And on one level, yeah, I can totally see that. And on another, you don't really think about it when you're living through it, if that makes
Right.
sense. But yeah, so I think it's been. I say 5/6. I'll walk you through the country. So
Yeah.
obviously, I was born in South Africa. I lived there for many, many years until I was about 11 or 12. Moved to Spain for about 5 years. Moved to Portugal for a couple of years. Moved to Wales for a couple of years. And then while I was in Wales, I also worked in the US for a couple of
Mm.
months. And I spent a good amount of time in Norway when I had family. My parents had moved there at the same time. So I spent like a few months there as well. And then I moved to Canada. So how many countries is that? A couple.
Yeah.
um, and you know what? All of this moving was when I was pretty young.
hmm
Um, it was throughout, like, from high school to college to like getting my first jobs and all that. And as somebody who was very quiet, was very shy, was very much like, let me just like stay at the back where nobody can possibly see me. Like, starting, like, number one, moving countries, but then traveling internationally. I think from age 14 or so, I was traveling internationally on my own to see my dad in South Africa. And it really was probably the best thing for me
Mm.
looking back because
Yeah.
it built so much confidence within me that, oh my gosh, I can do this. I can face big changes. I can navigate different cultures. I can navigate different languages. And like, I can actually do this. So when it comes to how all of these moves really impacted me as an entrepreneur. And one thing I'll add in is, I've moved countries that many times, but I remember a couple of months ago, I added up how many homes I've lived in.
hmm
And I think it's like over 25, 26 homes.
That's wild.
It is a lot. And
That is
I
a
was just
lot.
like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of packing, unpacking, getting settled.
Yes.
And it's one of those things where, you know, moving is stressful. Moving to a new city is stressful. Moving to a new country is stressful. Dealing with visas. Like the life admin I've had over the years is just insane when it comes to dealing with visas and PR and all these different things, permanent residency and all that. And it has been such a great thing for me to have as a background before becoming an entrepreneur, because it's so challenging. Like this, it's really got its moments where it's so challenging, and it really builds resilience. And I think resilience is one of those key traits that is really going to help you in entrepreneurship. And I don't know. There's obviously so many ways you can build resilience, but you can't really think yourself into being resilient. You need to face challenges. You need to be pushed outside your comfort zone. You need to deal with situations you never thought you'd be able to handle, recognize, oh my gosh, I can, or oh my gosh, it didn't quite go to plan, and I'm still standing. I'm still here. The sun's still rising.
Yeah.
So it's definitely helped me build resilience. It has also opened my eyes. Like, it's really fascinating how different all these countries are. Like South Africa to Spain, completely different lifestyle, completely different way of living. And even from Spain to Portugal, different lifestyle again. I mean, you would think they're so similar. They're right next to each other. There's so many differences in the culture. And then moving to the UK, very different again. Canada, very different again. And so I feel really lucky, because when you go to these places on holiday, you get a glimpse to the culture, but you don't really get to see everything. And I love so many parts of so many of these cultures. Like, I'll say in Spain and Portugal, I think they have a really good approach to like families and like prioritizing their family, prioritizing living life every day and not living for the 10 days of vacation they get a year. Like, there's a really good, I don't want to say balance, but like integration of living life every day. I don't think I ever had a takeaway coffee or something in Spain or Portugal. It's always like, oh yeah, you go and you sit down for 45 minutes and you relax. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a weekday. And those little things that sound so little are things that I try and incorporate into my day-to-day now, even as an entrepreneur. And to me, those are such, like, on one level, silly little things. On another, those are the things that add so much depth and so much like value to your life.
Yes.
Like, if you look back on your life when you're 80 and you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I rushed through everything. I rushed through building my business. I rushed through coffees every day. I rushed through my teas. I rushed through my lunches. It's just like, oh, like, that's not a life.
Right.
And yeah, maybe there's seasons where that happens, but what I've been able to do is like pick out from all the places I've lived some elements that I really, really love and that I want to kind of embrace in my life, and then kind of just make it a priority, make it happen. And so again, I think that helps with burnout, because the culture in the US, the culture in Canada, the culture even in South Africa is very go, 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 super high achieving. And you kind of have to earn your time off. I remember in Canada, in one of my first jobs, wanting to take 30 minutes to eat my lunch. And my boss said to me, can't you bring in easier to eat lunches so you can work while you eat? And I was just shocked, coming from Europe where you actually eat your lunch. I was just like, wait, this is a thing? Like, people don't eat lunch without working on their computer. I couldn't wrap my head around it. And so there's all these little things that I've been able to kind of pull on and incorporate into entrepreneurship. And it's things that I then have gone and encouraged my clients to do as well. So, I mean, there's so many little things, but it's the restorative practices that you need to incorporate throughout your day. It's not being like, oh, on the weekend, I'll catch up on sleep, or on the weekend, I'll catch up on this. It's like, no, what are the little things? Your daily walks, your movement, you know, connection with people you love. Like, what are those little things that we need to integrate into every day to be able to build a sustainable business, enjoy the process, feel connected to life and to the world around us, and not just feel like we're on, a rat race
Yeah.
situation.
I was just thinking that as you were telling me how you've taken bits and pieces of these cultures and integrated them into your life, before you even mentioned that you'd integrate it into your coaching program, I was already thinking that. I'm like, this is what she does in our coaching program.
Yeah.
And it has been such a good reminder to me, as a mom of 5 kids and I'm homeschooling and I'm running a business, I fall into that go, go, go. We've got to work, work, work. And while that can be good, like you say, those restorative practices are so important. And you really pull that to the forefront in the coaching program that like we have to take care of ourselves. Like that is not
Mm,
selfish. That is essential in being able
yeah.
to just thrive in life.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And I mean, I'll just say this for all the listeners who think like, oh my gosh, Robyn's got that balance down. I actually, like, before we started recording, I was like, oh my gosh, Steph, I'm having the biggest off day, and this usually doesn't happen to me. I'm
Yeah.
pretty consistent, but I'm so passionate and so excited about the work that I get to do. Like,
Yeah.
and the things we're launching this year, I can't tell you how I'm just so excited to put them out there into the world. I know they're going to help so many people. They're going to help energize them, get them making more money, like get them doing what's required in their business and make them feel more connected to other
Yeah.
people. And there's just so many things about it that I'm just so excited. And I've had nights where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't sleep. I'm going to get up and I just want to work on this because I want it all launched right now.
Right.
And what I've actually done in January is I pushed a little too hard, from a place of just pure excitement,
Yeah.
pure like, I want this done. I'm so excited. I'm like living, breathing everything that we're launching right now. And for anyone who thinks that's unhealthy, I mean, there's a balance for sure. I've
Right.
definitely pushed it, but I also see the benefit to having a bit of an obsession with the work that you do
Yeah.
in this world. And then it's just about, it's much easier to be obsessed and pull back when you need to than to try and build that drive to show
Right.
up for your business. So I've definitely pushed a little too hard, had a bit of a health issue over the last few hours. So I'm definitely not my best. And honestly, it's such a reminder to me that I'm like, wow, I'm number one saying yes to just a little bit too much right now. Number two, these launches don't have to happen right now.
Yes.
We have so many years ahead of us. They'll probably launch in the next 3 to 6 months. It doesn't all have to be right now. And yeah, honestly, there's nothing quite like a bit of a health scare for you to be like, let's refocus, let's get our priorities right,
Yeah.
and recognize like, if this is so important to me, the best thing I can do is prioritize my health first. So that's going to
Yes.
look like getting back into my morning walks. It's going to obviously I'm going to keep up with my Pilates. I'm going to be doing mindfulness practices. I'm not going to allow myself to check emails when I shouldn't be checking them, check
Yeah.
messages, check what's going on. So I'm curious if any of that resonates with you, Steph, on your journey.
Yes, of course it does. I was just thinking, like, one wise business coach always tells us there are no emergencies in the jewelry world.
Oh, yeah,
You can rest,
100%.
Robyn.
I
Rest.
know. You can rest.
Yes. Yeah, that is like one of my Achilles heels. It's just I almost get in a panic sometimes about like the to-do list,
Mm,
and I have to definitely stop and remember like I need to enjoy life now.
yeah.
Like this isn't, I don't have a destination I'm getting to and I'll enjoy it later. We've got to enjoy it now. And to do that, I got to like relax and slow down and take a breather. And then I also am really unrealistic in what I can get done in a day.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. I'm like,
Mhm.
I got one thing done. No. And so, yeah, absolutely. You have to take care of yourself. And in fact, I I have a really hard time with putting my needs first. I'll check the boxes for everybody who asks or anything else. And then at the end of the day, I'm just kind of like, and what did I do that's taking care of me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get it. I can totally understand also that passion and that drive that will burn you out if you're not careful just because you love something so much.
Oh yeah, completely. And I
Yeah.
think for somebody who's listening to this, who's like, okay, but I literally don't have time. How do I start incorporating this
Yeah.
time for myself? Well, everybody's situation is different. You're obviously a
Hmm.
mom, you have 5 kids. I don't have that responsibility yet, but for everyone it's different. And the one piece of advice I can give you is like, look at where you can buy back your time essentially.
Yeah.
Like, where can we pay somebody to take stuff off our plate? Maybe it's childcare, maybe
Absolutely.
it's grocery shopping, maybe it's meal prep, maybe it's cleaning your home, maybe it's certain tasks in your business that you don't need to be doing. Maybe if you don't like making the jewelry, let's get someone else making it. We're getting our time back.
Yeah.
It's so much better for you and your business long term to only be doing the things that you have to be doing. And obviously, in the early stages of business, you do kind of have to wear all the hats. But as soon as you're able to start letting go of some of those things, it makes such a difference to getting that time back. And then not telling all your friends and family, oh, I have free time. I can run errands and do all this for you. It's like,
Yes.
this is not free time. This is time for me. This is like CEO time. And I kind of like to block that out in your calendar as CEO time, whether you're getting a
Hmm.
massage or going for a walk, and making it something that you view as productive changes the way you feel about it. Because sometimes we feel guilty when we're doing a workout or we're doing yoga in the middle of the day and we think, oh my gosh, I should be working. No, you literally are working, but you're working on a different part of your business, which is you, the body, the asset that is
Yeah.
super important for you.
Yes. I really appreciate that. That was actually one of my questions for this hot seat interview was I am a people pleaser. And that is one of the reasons why I have a hard time putting myself first into my time. But you know, we all are given the same amount of time in the day. We all have the same 24 hours. It's what we choose to do with it. But how do you tell people no while you're in this season of scaling a business? It's really hard to explain to somebody who either they don't want to be an entrepreneur or it's just something that they've never thought about, they're never going to do, and you're trying to scale a business and you have so many things to do, but you can't really explain what they are.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Because unless you're an entrepreneur, you don't really understand how do you keep those relationships intact when
yeah.
it's such a misunderstood world and you have to be busy with it. You have to put in that time to scale your business.
Yeah, this is such a good question, Steph, because people pleasing is very real, especially with a lot of designers. They're very empathetic. They want to make people happy. And this is something I've dealt with my whole life is people pleasing to like another level. And it's got to points that have led to burnout. It's got to points that
Mm-hmm.
have led to like resentment and frustration. And it's all comes down to me not setting those boundaries, but also not even taking the time to recognize that I have permission to set those boundaries
Mm-hmm.
with other people. Where I am now, like I'm pretty good at setting boundaries with myself as well, boundaries with myself, boundaries with family, boundaries with friends, with like clients.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really not easy. And what I think is challenging, like you said, is when you have friends who are obviously it's a meaningful relationship in your
Right.
life, but they're not entrepreneurs and maybe they work 9 to 5. And yeah, there's stress in that job. But there's something about that 9 to 5 when you get home, you can kind of check out.
Mm-hmm.
Your mind can relax. You feel energized on one level to maybe have a 2 hour coffee chat or go do other things. Whereas when you're an entrepreneur, at the end of the day, sometimes your head's still thinking. Like, I feel like your brain never really fully shuts off, which is both a blessing and a
Yeah.
curse. And so that does take its toll on you, especially in the early stages of
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship. When you're more established, you actually have more time and more energy than somebody in the corporate world. But there's a season where you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's even say you finish work at 4, but you've been pouring yourself into creating. Creative energy needs time and space alone for you to get that energy back. It needs blank space in your calendar. So
Mm-hmm.
often what will happen is we're like, oh, well, I'm going to finish work at 4. It would be unreasonable for me not to say yes to a coffee with this friend who I really love, I really care about for 30 minutes after work. But actually what we need is like 7 full hours of not talking to anyone, going and having a chill bath, literally just like being and not socializing, because socializing requires a certain amount of energy. So it can be really hard. And here's what I recommend is, when you're framing these boundaries to people, it can be done in a really nice way. And most people are going to understand. And the people who don't aren't your people anymore. The reality is you will outgrow some friendships. As you grow as an entrepreneur, you're also going to keep some very real friendships.
Yeah.
So, and those will only get stronger. And we have to be okay with letting people be disappointed with our response, maybe being upset, maybe choosing to misunderstand you. And we can't take responsibility for the way people choose to interpret what we say. We can't be responsible for their feelings. When we do try and control other people's emotions to what we're saying and doing, we are going to be very stressed all the time, because you cannot do that. And then we take on the weight of, oh my gosh, they slightly rolled their eyes or they sighed when I said that. Like, do they think I don't care about them? Do they think I don't want to be their friend? Like, you know, and we start telling ourselves these stories, which aren't true.
Right.
And so we have to just let go of other people's opinions and being okay with the way they respond. And, you know, just framing it really honestly and being like, hey, Sarah, thank you so much for the invite. I would love to come and join you for coffee. Right now, I just don't have the capacity for that. But I would love to reconnect in like a couple of weeks or 6 weeks. Or maybe we do a walk, or maybe we just do a 5-minute phone call, you know, reframe it like that. And it's up to them. If they want to be difficult, that's on them.
That's true.
So yeah, like, I'm curious to hear your experience with this, Steph.
So I think, well, I don't know why, but I struggled to have good, solid friendships growing up. Some of it was because I moved, and then some of it was just the places we moved to. I just didn't connect. It was almost like I was kind of an outsider looking in, you know? And so I really value my friendships. I really value them. I also value other people's opinion of me. I don't like to let people down. I was raised, well, growing up, I'm the second oldest of 9. So I've always had this role of responsibility where I need to be helpful and be responsible and be in charge. And so I think when you combine all of those aspects of my life and the experiences I've had, it's just kind of made it hard for me to set those boundaries. It's made it hard for me to really speak up and say what I need, and maybe even to know what I need. I think for a long time, I didn't even know what would make me less stressed, or what would help me feel more relaxed, or what would fill my cup, because I've always just been, I think I was just busy taking care of other people until I burnt out.
Yeah.
And then when you and I met was probably my lowest of lows. I was just starting to come out of it and feel capable again of building my business. And I really hit rock bottom from burnout, from constantly taking care of everybody else around me and I had some resentment too. And there was no one to blame but myself. It just, it was not an area of my life I had good self-awareness in.
Yeah.
For a long time, I didn't even need it. Like, it didn't bug me. And then I just got to a point, I think, just the demand of motherhood and being an entrepreneur, and my husband and I being self-employed, and everything around us just led me to burnout. And so I appreciate this perspective and advice, and it's something I'm working on. I'm learning how to put up healthy boundaries, and I'm learning that it doesn't mean somebody's going to think less of me. I just have to have those boundaries in place because I do have so much on my plate.
Yeah. Well, Thank you for sharing, Steph. And yeah, I remember when you came in, you were not in the best space. And
Yeah.
when it comes to people pleasing, I'm actually so glad we're talking about this. We could do like 5 whole episodes just
Yeah.
on this topic, because it's what you said about not even recognizing that you need boundaries or what your needs
Mm-hmm.
are. I resonate so deeply with that, because that was me for many, many years. Like, I was just like, if customers wanted something, I was like, yeah, of course. If event
Right.
organizers wanted stuff, yes, of course. If other businesses wanted to do collabs, but I was going to do all the work, yes, of course. If
Mm-hmm.
friends wanted me to go out with them, it was just like, oh yeah, of course, I'll be there.
Right.
I'll do that. Yes to family, yes to looking after their home when they're away or whatever. And I said I did exactly the same, because I feel like, and this is why I'm so glad that you're homeschooling your kids, but in the school system,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we were trained to, at least my experience was that I feel like I was trained not to listen to my body. So it
Yes.
wasn't like, check in with how you're feeling on a day-to-day basis. If you're feeling sick, if you're feeling dizzy, if you're having an off day, it's better for you to stay home and read a book or go for a gentle walk or do this.
Mm-hmm.
But the school system forces you and rewards you. Like, I used to aim to get the certificate every year of 0 sick days.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
And so
Yes.
I was literally that student who
That
was
was
like,
me.
I cannot miss a day. I need
Yeah.
to be there for every single day. And so I could literally have been dying of sickness, and I wouldn't even have checked in. And I actually remember
Yeah.
going to my corporate job once, and I don't even know how I drove that. I don't even know how I drove that. I just, at no point, even though I was so sick, and that job actually was fine with people coming in sick. It was very obviously many years ago, which is also shocking. But I was so sick, I could barely lift my arm. And no part of me, not once, even thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't be going into work. It never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
And so I really resonate with this. And it's something that I think takes a lot of practice. It's something that we
Yes.
have to do slowly. And I think it starts by doing little check ins with yourself and being like, well, again, what's my why for building this business? What's my why for being on this earth? What are the things I'm wanting to do? What do I want my day to day to look like?
Mm-hmm.
What things energize me? What things take away that energy from me? And really just starting to create space in your calendar to actually check in on what
Yeah.
those things are. And if you have no idea, start with baby steps.
Yes.
um, and so I've actually spoken to my therapist about this, because there's so many layers to people pleasing, and it doesn't just go away when you're like, oh, I have this, I'm going to set boundaries. No,
Right.
it takes so many years. And one of the books that she recommended to me, which was just so insightful, was The Disease to Please by I think it's
Mm.
Harriet B. Breaker. Such a good book.
I'm gonna have
And
to read it.
yeah, honestly, anyone listening to this who deals with people pleasing, The Disease to Please,
Disease to please.
when you frame it even as like the
Write that down.
disease to please, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this
Oh,
is no
yeah.
longer like an A-star sort of student vibe. This is a like, wow, this is not a good thing to have. This is
Yeah.
not a thing to be proud of, that you're a people pleaser. Because sometimes I think we think like, oh yeah, I'm a people pleaser, I want people to be happy, that's a good thing. When we reframe that as like, no, that's like not something to aim for, it also makes a
Right.
difference. But this book talks, all about recognizing the root cause of people pleasing and how it comes from, that low self-esteem or a need for approval, which so many of us have when we're growing
Yeah.
up. And it kind of walks you through like identifying what drives that need to please people. Like
Mm.
where's that coming from?
Yeah.
Where's that coming from in business settings as well?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we so scared of a customer leaving a bad review that we're going to go above and beyond for like almost abusive requests on one level? Are
Mm-hmm.
we going to be bullied by people who threaten things? Are we going to say yes when a customer wants to pick something up and then they don't show up, and then they show up randomly 5 days later and we're just going to let that be? There's
Right.
so many different things, but it walks you through that. It also walks you through the cost of people pleasing, because there's such a cost to it. And you touched on one of the things earlier, Steph, which is you said, I started feeling resentful. So
Mm-hmm.
it leads to burnout, leads to resentment. It leads to you feeling undervalued. And in business, it kind of shows up as overcommitting yourself to projects,
Yes.
to collabs, to events, and then undervaluing yourself to keep other people happy. So underpricing,
Yeah.
always doing sales, giving everyone discounts, all those little things. So there's different ways of doing that. And you can just slowly start identifying, like in my personal life, what are the boundaries I need? In my business, what are the boundaries I need? Within my friendships, like what does this look like? And just slowly start like getting clarity over what those are before you even sharing them with people. But one of my favorite takeaways from the book is that she helps you shift your perspective around the word no. Because
Okay.
saying no can feel
Yeah,
really selfish. It can feel
it
really
can.
mean. And when you kind of reframe that to be like, no, this is necessary. Saying no is necessary and it's okay
Yeah.
for my own needs and goals. And you just need to start practicing saying no, because
Right.
most of us are yes people. And so little ways that you can practice, you can be your family can ask you to, I don't know, do an activity, play cards, and you're like, no, you know what, I don't feel like it. But also there's a balance of, I want to have these memories. But you can find little things to practice saying no to, so that when it comes to the big things in business, when you have, I don't know, you're doing collabs with brands, you have business partners, you have all these different things, it gets easier and easier.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, she helps you redefine success. So
Mm,
often we see success as having many people approve of us.
right.
And if we can reframe that view on success as being authentic to who we are and our
Mm,
needs, and showing up in that way, makes such a difference. And what it does as well is it helps people respect you.
mm-hmm.
People do not respect people pleasers. And I know that's
That's
really
true.
hard to say, but you'll see it in the way they behave towards you. You'll see it in the way they respond when you set boundaries. There is
Mm-hmm.
no respect. And I think one of the best things I've learned as a coach as well is it's okay for people to not like me. It's okay for people to actually hate me, quite honestly. But, and, my clients, I have to be okay with, at certain stages, them not liking me at all,
Mm-hmm.
because I can't be a people pleaser as a coach. I can't do my job if I am doing that, because
Right.
the way it works is they come to a call, they're asking a question. Sometimes I have to call them out. Sometimes I have to tell them what they don't want to hear, because that is my job. Now, if I was a people pleaser, I would value them liking me over valuing telling them what they actually need to hear.
Right.
So it wouldn't be serving anyone.
That's true.
And so just redefining success makes a
Yeah.
huge difference.
I love that.
I know we went a little off track here, but
No, it
I'm
was
so glad we
perfect.
talked about this, because
Yeah.
this is really powerful. Like,
Yeah.
people pleasing, it sounds like such a little trait. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a people pleaser. I just like to
Mm-hmm.
make people happy. It's just like all good intentions. No, this can lead to chronic illness. Like, this can be a death sentence. It's not
Yes.
a joke.
Yes. No, it does. It leads to burnout. It leads to being resentful of relationships you have. It can be a real problem if you don't have boundaries or even know what your boundaries should be.
Yeah.
So I love the advice and the perspective. I wrote down the
Amazing.
title of the book so I get
Yeah, let me know.
it.
Let me know if you enjoy it. And you
Yeah.
can actually get the audiobook. I really enjoyed listening to the
Oh,
audiobook
yes.
version.
That
It's
would
on
be good.
Spotify, I think, and like the audio. Can't remember
Okay.
what it's called.
I will have to do that.
Yeah.
There's one more question I want to ask you
Yes.
before, so as a mother who is, I feel like a lot of times the world's perspective of the help that mothers should need or not need and the grace that we get is kind of, the attitude is kind of like, well, you chose to have kids, you need to have these problems figured out. And in your coaching business and in growing a business while in the trenches of motherhood, you are incredibly flexible with me, understanding. You have a lot of compassion. And I want to know, like, I wish more people could value motherhood the way that you do as my coach. I don't even know if I have a question here. I just want you to know I appreciate it so much. And I was just curious if there was something like an experience or perspective that you have that, and like you said, you're not a mother yet, but you understand motherhood so incredibly well. And I just want to know if you have anything you want to share on that topic.
Yeah, I did not expect to get all emotional. I can feel myself welling up here, Steph, but thank you for sharing that. And, I think there's probably an accumulation of so many little things that I've kind of seen as I've grown up and, built businesses. One thing that's just sticking to my mind, and it's such a tiny little moment in my life. Like, it's strange that it's like, to me, like jumping out is like a really big thing. But when I worked at one of my corporate jobs, the highlight of my day was driving through Tim Hortons drive-through to get a double coffee, which I don't drink anymore, but it was the only thing that would get me excited about the
Yeah.
potential of the day. And I'd make it last like 2 hours because it was just like, okay, first 2 hours of that day are done. And I'd go through the drive-through like every single day. And most days there was this woman, and I can't remember her name, but she was just so lovely, and she kind of became like a friend. You
Yeah.
go, they know your name, you get your coffee. She always knew my order. She always just was smiling and like just had such a wonderful vibe. And I remember chatting to her once because my coffee was taking a while, and she told me she had a like 2-year-old at home. And the one day she was just a bit distressed because she's like, yeah, I'm fine. It's just my 2-year-old sick. I couldn't get time off work. It's just, really hard to juggle being a single mom and, just having to have a job and work and stuff. And I just felt so like kind of helpless, like,
Mm-hmm.
because the reality is life is really hard. Even
Yeah.
if you're in the perfect situation, you can have the perfect marriage and your kids and a ton of money. Life is hard. Take
Yeah.
all of that away, it's like survival mode. And I just remember driving away and saying to myself, I am going to do something to help women like this at
Yeah.
some point. Like, I need to find a way to help women make enough money that they can. Now I'm crying. Okay.
Me too.
That they can look after themselves, that they can get out of relationships that aren't serving them, because I've been in those relationships before, and it's really scary. I want to just help them, find their voice and take up space. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. And actually, when I started my jewelry business, I actually started another company, which I haven't really told people about. It was called Empowering Events, and it was just going to be for women. And it was, at that time, that was the only thing I could think of, is like, how am I going to help women? And I never ended up executing that. I ended up just shutting
Mm.
that down 3 years later. I had like not a good business plan. I didn't know how it was going to make a difference. Like, just people going to motivational talks is not going to drive change.
Right.
Same way that people reading books. I mean, reading a book is great. Listening to a podcast is great. What's going to change people's life is like having essentially a pathway of, here's what we're going to do, which is what
Yeah.
we do in the Jewelry Business Academy. And I just didn't have the skill set or the awareness or the support to be able to like bring that to life. But I just remember promising myself, like, there must be a way for women to be able to like have that independence, have that sense of purpose.
Mm.
This woman was so vibrant, so wonderful. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I wish I had a company. I could give her a job. She's just one of those people. And, give her a job where, yeah, your child's sick, go home, work from home,
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
flexibility. And I just remember seeing in the corporate world when I was working there, the slight like distress and anxiety that the mothers felt when their
Mm-hmm.
children were sick, or when they had to drop things, or when they had to work from home. And that constant like worry.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I saw when I was growing up was my parents got divorced when I was very young. And so my mom at one point was just, single mom. She was a teacher working really, really long hours. And I had days when I was sick and I'd have to go with her to school and
Mm-hmm.
hide in like the book closet in her classroom and stuff, which I actually loved. But it was
Right.
seeing those little things where I'm like, oh my gosh, what if she had a different job where she literally couldn't do this? Like,
Yeah.
what do people do in these situations? So yeah, I'd say that's been all these little things have had
Right.
that impact. And I know this is gonna, some people don't like this, but this is how I felt about my dog. Like, my dog was my kid, and he moved from China to Canada to be with me at one point because he was just too old to travel. There's a whole story behind this, but he came here, and I realized like he was around 11 or 12 at the time, and I was like, oh my gosh, we don't know how many years he has left. We
Yeah.
don't know, what's in store for him. For me to be sitting at a desk at a corporate job from 8 till 5:36, and then coming home and seeing him, like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
And this is a dog. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is a dog. Can you imagine kids?
Right.
Like, how do people do it? And I felt so much guilt. And I remember even speaking to my work and being like, do we have flexibility here? Because
Yeah.
this was actually a huge driving force of me leaving that job. I was like, you know what? I'm going to build this business. I'm going to have flexibility. I'm going to spend time with my dog because I don't know how many years we have left.
Yeah.
And just recognizing like how I felt towards that situation, and then add in if people have kids, 10 times harder, I think it all has kind of
Yeah.
added up.
Yeah. Well, you've done a great job.
Thank you.
You've held good on your promise to yourself.
Thank you so much, Steph. And thank you for coming and hosting this episode.
Yes.
This was more emotional.
I know.
I never saw this one coming.
I didn't either. Sorry.
But thank you for coming and hosting. And I know we're going to have people who are going to want to connect with you. Where can everyone find you, and how can they support you? And also, where can they find those dreamy little heart earrings that you're wearing? They're so
Thank
cute.
You. My company is called Iviana and Co. It's a little mashup of my oldest two, their names. So yeah, I have my website, ivianaandco.com, and then same handle on Instagram, Iviana and Co.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Steph. We'll link those in the show notes, but thank you for being here. This is a very special episode.
Yes, I loved it. Thank you.